Good morning, subscribers, and welcome back. It's September 2018, and now I'm just going to start and fill and plug some of the gaps in my playlists, which I have reorganized over the summer, and I hope that you're finding it a bit easier to navigate the videos and to find exactly what you're looking for. It's been really useful for me as well, because I've been able to see where the gaps are, and hence I'll be able to plug them for you, I hope. So today, this is going to be very brief. I'm just going to talk briefly about the basic economic problem. So yesterday I covered this with my Year 12 students, just starting onto the A-level economics course. And what do we mean by this thing, the BEP, the BEP, the basic economic problem? Well, fundamentally it is one of scarcity and choice. So let's take those terms in turn and consider exactly what we mean. So number one, scarcity. What exactly is it that is scarce in the economy? Well, we would say that resources are scarce. Or another way of saying that might be that the factors of production are scarce. You're probably familiar with the little acronym CELL, C-E-L-L. Factors of production being land, labour, capital and enterprise, or capital, enterprise, land and labour, if you wish to use that little acronym to remind you. So it is the resources which are scarce, or another way of saying that, of course, is that resources are finite. They are limited. And we living in the 21st century, we really know that, and we see that, and we appreciate it, because of course we now have all sorts of companies trying to find alternative means of fuel and transport, because of course natural resources upon which we are so dependent are running out, and consequently we are moving to the whole notion of, say, battery powered electric cars, energy in terms of solar and wind and all of that jazz. So it is the resources which are scarce or finite. So that's one particular issue. Now, of course, the flip side of that is, of course, that we want lots of things. We have an infinitesimal amount of wants. Now, the key thing to note here, ladies and gentlemen, that it is wants rather than needs in this particular instance that we're referring to. So our wants are infinite. Never ending. I want. However, resources are finite. And of course, there's a little conundrum there. You've only got a limited amount of resource, but wants are infinitesimal. So how do we tie that together, and how do those two things marry up? Well, in order to marry those two things up, scarcity of resource and infinite wants, then choices have to be made, and that then brings us back to this whole notion of scarcity resulting in choices having to be made. Now that can be on an individual level, so it can be you as an individual. You might earn a certain amount of money from a part-time job, and you realise that with that money there are lots of things that you want, but you can't have them all, and therefore in your own mind you're making choices all the time. So this whole notion of scarcity and choice and the basic economic problem, it applies to individuals, it applies to firms, it applies to governments, it applies to the global economy. So it can be applied across the sort of the micro and the macro economy, as it were. So choices have to be made. So we've given that example with the individual. Firms, of course, they may want lots of new machinery, they may want to expand their premises, they may want to employ new people, they may want to invest in research and development, but of course they do not have the resources to do all of those things. And so they make a choice as to do one or another. The government may want to improve the standard of healthcare and pump more money into health. Or it may wish to improve our road network and fill the potholes and build new motorways and all of these types of things. However, there is a limited or a finite pot of money, taxpayers' money, finite resource once again. And so, again, the government has to make choices. So we can apply this whole notion across the board. And of course, you're making these choices all the time, but you're just not thinking, oh, this is because of the basic economic problem. But this is what's happening. Now, of course, when you make a choice, so you decide to do option A rather than option B, so the government decides to pump money into health rather than into education, then education loses out and education suffers. And we refer to that as being the opportunity cost. So if you pump money into one area and then the other area doesn't get the money, then that is the opportunity cost. The definition of opportunity cost is the cost of the next best alternative foregone. So the thing that you give up is the opportunity cost. So if you earn some money from a part-time job and you decide, right, I'm going to buy this box set of DVDs rather than this new t-shirt, then the t-shirt which you're giving up, that is then the opportunity cost. And this problem of scarcity and choice, it's not just common to the UK, it's not just common to the United States, this arises globally. And of course, different countries take different approaches to solving this particular problem. Because this particular problem, you're asking yourself all the time, and firms are asking themselves, and governments are asking themselves, well, what goods and services should I produce? Will it be A or will it be B? How should I produce them? That's a question in terms of, particularly for firms and efficiency and resource. And for whom? So who am I going to produce them for and who's going to buy them? And that problem is solved via different types of economic systems. Now, we'll tackle economic systems in future series of videos. Suffice to say at this stage that I'm sure you know we would be talking about either a free market or capitalist economy, solving that problem, or a mixed economy, where we have government intervention but also the role of demand and supply and market forces, or finally a planned economy where everything is owned and controlled by the state, and it is the state that decides the what, the how, and the for whom. If you want to know a little bit more about the what, the how, and the for whom, just Google Samuelson, US economist, 1970s, and it'll bring you up a little bit of further wider reading for that particular topic. So I'm going to leave it at that, ladies and gentlemen. That is the basic economic problem. You'll find that in the appropriate playlist. Bye for now.